Drew doesn't, that picture is really good. Drew doesn't always look that good.
No, no, Morton never looks that good. The faux
Takes a
hawk
lot of
is,
work. A lot of
well,
work.
I know this the recording is starting with the discussion of Drew Morton's faux hawk, and Nick's ability
Yeah,
to cut it. Is it? Can we? Do we have a live picture of the faux hawk? Can we get that?
it's like Mr. Robot made it all the way into the
Ah,
80s.
see, look there you did. No, it's good. The faux hawk is jamming.
She's getting it down. Yeah, she's on a meeting in the other room, so I'm trying to move
Yeah,
away.
you're being polite. All
So
right. Well, welcome to a Faculty Friday with Drew Morton's Faux Hawk, but we're really here to talk about eventually Kevin Ells' research, the Mass Comm degree, and I will be, once as always, trying to avoid Tyler Garney's question ball. We do three phases. So the first is a conversation with Kevin and Drew about Mass Comm and Comm. At the MA level, sort of what the degree is, what they get an experience for students who are interested in it, either as a major, a minor, potentially thinking about an MA later, all those types of things. I'm also curious if Kevin and Drew will talk about what it is that got them into mass comm, how they found themselves mass comm professors, those types of things, why it's their jam, all that sort of thing. We'll do that for 10 minutes or so. We'll turn over to everybody gets to talk. You can certainly ask questions of Drew and Kevin if you do have them about the mass comm or comm degrees. Then we'll do a series of questions where everybody gets to sort of get to know each other, talk, and again, I will try to avoid Tyler's question ball. And then we'll finish with Kevin spending 10, 15 minutes or so talking about the research stuff that he does in an informal way of like, hey, this is what I do and why I'm interested in it and all those sorts of things. So I will turn it over to Kevin. Kevin, what does Mass Comm look like and Comm look like here at A&M Texarkana?
Fairly straightforward and conventional compared to other programs. We don't, we do as much as we possibly can here with a small faculty to provide the full range of material one would find at a communication or mass communication program elsewhere in a place like Dallas or Houston or St. Louis, where you would have a faculty of 30 people instead of perhaps three. But mass communication, properly defined, as it has been by me throughout my career, and it harks back to definition first proposed by a giant in our field named George Gerbner in the 60s, is the mass production or mass distribution of content of news, entertainment, content, and persuasive messages. And if you've got that definition in your head, then the entire field makes sense. And you can distinguish mass communication. You think, so it started with Gutenberg. Yes, it did. Oh, so mass media isn't the same thing as mass communication. It's just the biggest, most powerful example of people doing mass communication. Yes, that's right. Oh, so it overlaps with mediated communication, which goes back to the invention of writing. Yes, it does, especially in the 21st century when ordinary citizens can go on social media platforms and attempt mass communication. You mean they're in the media? No. Oh, mass communication is the mass production or mass distribution of what I've got on my mind or what I'm trying to put out there. Right. And that's the pivot between the 20th century and this one, is the ability of ordinary citizens to make a serious attempt at mass communication, properly understood. As it, to be fair, has been understood by some big names in our field, but not always in our own textbooks, where it's often conflated with media or the media or mainstream media. So that means that if you're studying mass communication, what are you involved in? Well, virtually any job in which mass producing content, news, entertainment, expressive remarks, persuasive messages is of importance to you or your clients or your audience. So you can name check what some call the legacy media of the pre-internet era: books, publishing, magazines, newspapers, journalism, newsmaking, news broadcasting, radio work, radio announcing, DJing, all of that, record production, and so forth. But it also includes what we call the new media or emerging media, taking place almost entirely on social media platforms. And so our program, as it probably 15 years ago, it looked, from what I've heard, almost like a Voc Tech program involving some hands-on stuff with, getting news stories out and doing some radio. It took a turn toward the traditional academic angle probably in 2010 when the university expanded. And in the last 5 or 6 years, it's held on to the academic side while increasing year by year its coverage of hands-on practical application courses. So we were always doing pretty well in providing video instruction. My colleague from UCLA is a film professor. When I got here, there wasn't even a media writing course, which a couple of prominent people, including me, said, what the hell? So we got that back up to speed very quickly and integrated that with our introductory journalism and its output, our online Eagle Eye digital newspaper or news feed. I revamped the graphic design sequence within a year or two with Dr. Morton and Doug's encouragement. We revamped audio and broadcasting courses in the last year or so. And our former colleague, Dr. Huang, who joined us a few years ago, reinvigorated our strategic communications courses, PR and advertising. So the current program covers the basic academic six-pack, the industry writing, the legal environment, the theoretical background, research methods in the field, and a capstone experience, whether it's internship, thesis, or portfolio. And in the last couple of years, we also require at least that Ells students get their feet wet in graphic design, audio production, video production, and strategic communication. And those who want to pursue any or all of those in more depth, well, every couple of years, we've got senior level offerings or junior level offerings in all of them.
Excellent, thank you. Question for you: what do students walking out with a degree in mass communication typically do? What are your students doing with their degrees?
We've got folks on air in radio and television. We've got folks behind the scenes in radio and TV. One of our students who did a graphic design internship is now on the masthead as editor of a local advertising magazine. We've got people going into events management and PR. And we've had a couple of folks with newspaper jobs with their bylines on the front page of their local paper here or down in nearby counties. So I had confessed, when I first got here, I thought, oh, these poor kids doing mass communication, they're all going to have to move to Dallas or Houston. But certainly we have folks who are based in Shreveport, because that's where most of the TV is. But I'm surprised at the number of people we have who are right here in their hometowns or surrounding villages doing productive media work right here. So it would get you a start in design, video, audio, writing, and the strategic arts of PR, advertising, corporate communications, events management. We touch on the range of anything, and folks who want to focus will generally do so in their capstone courses or senior electives.
How did you end up a mass comm guy? Drew, you can also answer. I'll preface this with, it was funny when we did English. Corinne, Jamie, and I all acknowledge that none of us started out doing English, that we came to it. History, all those guys, I think since they were in diapers, wanted to be historians by their measure. So I'm curious with the mass comm folk, when did it happen, or how did it become your jam, and when did you end up going this direction?
Well, I was interested in writing, and so therefore getting my own work mass produced from single digits age, and could have easily gone into English. I, took the first prize in English in high school, and then never took another English course after high school in my life, but married an English professor. And so I found when I got excited about teaching in communication courses in at a two-year college up in Missouri, that I thought, oh yeah, I'm really interested in this. I really am interested in this stuff. But I was teaching a Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift, and I thought, oh yeah. And the composition courses interested me and it got me enthused. So really, I'm a rhetoric guy. I'm really interested in how crafting a message using the right language and exactly the right social codes can have a persuasive impression in a community or beyond it. So that fascinates me. I could easily have taken my research in propaganda into a political science direction. Um, if I were an English professor, I would certainly be a composition and rhetoric professor, um, and teaching the argumentation course that would be cross-listed with the rhetoric of communication or speech courses for sure. So that's really what gets me up in the morning. And mass communication is simply that, mass produced or mass distributed across a range of industries on behalf of clients and audiences.
Drew?
Sure. So am I coming through okay? I'm in the bedroom and sometimes the Wi-Fi in here gets a little funky. Okay. So when I was in high school, I wanted to be a filmmaker, like a director and a screenwriter, and I did a lot of little short films and stuff. And then I realized very quickly on how much you had to work with other people, and it was kind of like the world's worst group project. So I was like, I like making these things, but they're very hard. But I still really like movies. That's really what got me into mass communication. So I started writing film reviews, and I wrote for my student newspaper, and then I wrote for one of the larger newspapers in the state. I was brought on as like a teen journalist. And when I was in college, I was like, oh, I'll become a film critic. And then I'm interning at this major Wisconsin newspaper, and I'm seeing all these people getting laid off, and it's kind of, becomes a struggle in the early 2000s with journalism and keeping a full-blown career in it. So while I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, all these cool people are teaching these film classes. How do I do what they do? Because I'm not going to make money making movies, and I'm not going to make money writing about them. But I could teach this stuff. That would be fun. So that's what really got me into it. I was an English major and a film studies major, double major as an undergrad. And basically all that meant is I had to take a Shakespeare class and a poetry class. And then, it was very much my background is coming out of that English tradition and that more humanities tradition, which has been great. But then I got to go to UCLA, and there you're in more of a film program where you have to do some film production classes and stuff like that. And one of the things I like the most about my career path now is I still get to make things. I still get to do my little short films and my documentaries. I found essentially a way to hybridize that desire to create movies with my scholarship, which is the videographic criticism that I do. So it's great. It satisfies all my needs. I get to, do the deep thinking and the writing, and I still get to make things. And that's what I think is one of the great things about our program is how much it highlights theory and practice that you can't really understand. Some of my film studies students right now are reading like Eisenstein and Bazan, and it's like you can't really understand them unless you have to try to like make things. And you can't really make things without an understanding of where the language of film and the language of visual media has come from. So I love that we serve both masters, and it's not just a tech competence program, and it's not just a theory and history class either.
Yep. There are really only three directions that a mass communication program can go nationwide. It's either like a Voc Tech kind of workshop thing with $250,000 mini studios, or it's something more humanities-based, critical theory, academics, heavy doses of media psychology and sociology, or some programs try to walk the line with one foot in a humanities tradition and the other foot in a pragmatic work training tradition. And it seems like a big thing to take on for a goal to take on for a small program in a geographically remote area, but that's the best thing to do for us, for these students and the population we've got. We can't, if we, there are, if we just said, oh, we're just going to go the humanities route, well, then we're competing with huge humanities programs out there. If we just say, well, we're going to go full on job prep, well, we don't have the financial resources to keep updating our on-campus studios to keep up with the rapidly changing technology. So we walk the middle road. We say the important thing is learning how to learn. And in practicing a six-pack of basic skills, here's how, not just to get your feet wet in a certain set, a range of skill sets, but learn how to acquire new skills. Because 5 years after you graduate, some of the jobs you've trained for will be radically changed technically, or might not exist, or there might be postings for jobs that didn't exist by the time you graduated. And there's no better, so we introduce everybody to the skill sets, let them acquire, go into depth where they want to, but then use the historical and humanities and critical thinking part of the program to say, here's the value added of a 4-year degree. Here's why you didn't just go to 2-year radio college, because here you're learning to solve problems that don't exist yet, that you haven't foreseen and that nobody has foreseen. If you can do that, then learn how to learn and acquire new skills on the fly, then over the next 30 or 40 years, you will always be, there'll always be people who will want you around. Then you got a shot at feeding your family and also maintaining some of your own autonomy. That's where it'll come from.
Excellent. Thank you both. I think the through thread there, and it makes perfect sense knowing both of you and the department, and I get to sit as department chair for a little bit longer, is that both of you in talking about the process of how it is that you ended up here, both of you have this kismet moment where you go, I want to teach that stuff to people. I want to share that stuff with people. I want other people to know. And I think that's a hallmark and has always been of the mass comm degree and what you've been doing through the various iterations of it. All right, so now it's time to, everybody can get involved in answering my ridiculous questions. Again, Tyler is always threatening with the question ball. He says no, but we've had conversations about this. I'm very proud that so far I've been able to avoid it. I've tried to think a little bit more the media, and I won't say mass comm driven because it's more media related in my questions this particular Friday. So if you could guest star on any TV show, can be past or present, which one would you choose? And again, it's open to Kevin, Drew, but also anybody in the room.
Start with Drew, because most of the shows are produced where he lives.
That's a really hard one, because like part of me would be like tempted to be like, I want to be on Miami Vice and wear those ridiculous like 80s suits and drive like a white Lamborghini around. That would be fun. But I don't know. We've been rewatching Mad Men a lot, and I'm like, the clothes, the booze, you know, it's not New York City, but it looks like New York City. I could go for Mad Men.
Yeah, definitely, definitely Mad Men, or you know, or a walk-on part on something like Fargo or Breaking Bad. You know, but I thought you meant like whose show would I want to appear on, and who would I, sitting on the sofa being interrogated the host, by probably John Oliver, Seth Meyers, or it would be the shows I'd like to show. My daydream is having a book come out that actually sells a bit, and then I have to explain what the book even means in 2 minutes to a mass audience. So
I think The Office for me, because it would kind of be a goal, which I'm obsessed with The Office anyway, to try to make it a full episode without either laughing or cringing. I think that would be a personal goal that I would enter with, and I think it'd be fun.
I would want to be on Chilling Adventures of Sabrina because I love how they like edit everything. Everything's so like dark and crazy and intense, and I think that would be really fun to be a part of.
Okay. All right. So always try to figure out a Texarkana spin to the question. So the spin this time is, what TV show should be set in Texarkana? Can be one you were taking that was set somewhere else, now is in Texarkana, and what would be different? Or can be the idea of the TV show of Texarkana as sort of its own creation. So what TV show should be set in Texarkana? And or what would happen if you did?
I just finished rewatching Justified, and Justified is a kind of Western detective story that's set in the Appalachian Mountains with like it's got this kind of, it's an Elmore Leonard series, so it's kind of got your fun peanut gallery of villains. It's kind of got dark comedy going on in it. If you've seen Fargo or you've seen Get Shorty, you know what I'm talking about. But I think the kind of weird amalgam of just strange people that come up in an Elmore Leonard movie or a series or a story would really serve Texarkana, just because we have some characters. And I just saw this viral video that was going around a week or two ago of some guy who looked like redneck Vin Diesel hanging off the front of a car as it was going down State Line Avenue. And I was like, yeah, that's like something out of an Elmore Leonard book. That's weird. That's something you would not see in any other city but Texarkana. So I think something in Elmore Leonard's vein or something like that.
yeah, I'm a big Justified fan too. I was thinking Walker, Texas Ranger, but that's
I think that works. Corinne?
It would get really complicated though, because then some guy would like run across the state line and be like, you can't get me now. I'm on the other side.
That would be Dukes of Hazzard explanation, right? Always make it to the county line, right? And suddenly Peacock train cannot cross. Corinne, I'm waiting. I saw your face when I asked the question. I cannot wait to find out what's going to come out of your mouth.
I think it has to be Superstore. Because it's set in St. Louis right now. It really does not take much to just move that a little bit further down and throw it in, a Walmart-esque shop in Texarkana, and all the customers and the weirdness and even the personnel in the store and the vest wearing and the mask, especially now that we've gone through COVID, the COVID scenes and the adaptations in Superstore. Yeah.
What is Shameless? I don't think I know Shameless, Brooklyn.
Oh God.
It's not a good show, but the few things that I've seen, like a few episodes that I've seen, they remind me of Texarkana.
East Texas tragedy unfolding. Yeah. In a trailer park instead of in a is it Boston? Are they in the Boston area?
Chicago, I think.
Chicago. Yeah, there we are. Yeah.
All right, this one I was thinking of Morton. So you have the opportunity to create the film, right? But it's a new Hollywood monster, right? So if you got to create this Hollywood monster, what does your monster look like, and what does it do? Others can answer. I put Drew on the spot only of the filmmaking side of it.
I would just make it about my dog because he's never happy when he's hungry. He just keeps going. The other night he kept waking me up. Yeah, just make him giant. Make him like Godzilla, and just he can't be satiated with any like degree of food, and he just whines and bothers you, and he gets you out of bed. And it's just like that kind of stuff where it's just like, you know, he's not like hurting anybody.
No, there's
Maybe
no
it'd be funny
buildings
if
are
he, like,
destroyed. It's just a gigantic Paps that wakes up the entire city wanting food.
yeah, and wanting food, wanting love, yeah. Just like whining when he needs to be pet, and like he'll start like laying on houses, like touch me, and then he'll pee when you do, because that's what he does.
Shedriana, talk about what you put into chat. I don't know if we perhaps shouldn't psychoanalyze you, but why a deer?
I don't know, because when I think of Texarkana, obviously, because you know, from the last few Zooms, I always say a deer. So a deer pops up into my head. But I can't imagine a deer standing up like and just walking, and then with like the Freddy Krueger hands, like as knives, as antlers, and then is walking slowly towards you like a zombie would be freaking terrifying. So I don't know why, but when you said monster, that's the image that immediately popped up in my head.
Fair enough.
So,
There's symmetry there because I listen to Zombies Run every day as I go back into this particular area, and there are about 10 deer that are running around there that I'm going to look at differently tomorrow.
yeah.
It's like the pet cemetery of Northeast Texas, which is probably super, super frightening. Like animals coming back from the dead, but looking remarkably like them. So that's always a really, because we think that pets are just so passive and sweet and all of that. And then to find out that they might be somehow possessed or zombied or dangerous is, yeah, that would work for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a large zombie family during the next pandemic that carries a flu virus around, and they spread it by knocking on your door and talking to you for 10 minutes until you take their pamphlet. And you think, here he comes, but no, then there's another one every hour that
Right.
your doorbell is ringing.
And
Until-
Drew, to respond to your chat, I cannot imagine what a Texarkana Bridgerton would even look like. It does not compute in my brain.
I don't know what Bridgerton is. Somebody tell me what Bridgerton is.
It's
Brooke
like
is looking at me like I'm insane that I don't know. I don't get to watch the TV very often. I have kids, and then it becomes Jax. I occasionally get cooking shows in the middle.
It's
What
sort
is
of a
Bridgerton?
historical fiction. It's a period piece from, I don't know,
200
Victorian era, maybe a little bit further on, right? And so they're all lovely, and they're trying to get their girls married off to men of higher status and class, and some
Every
tricks
episode would
ensue.
probably take place at the Ace of Clubs house. I mean,
Right.
that's all you got.
It's a little Shakespearean sort of Much Ado, where the girl and the guy concoct a plan where they're going to pretend that they're courting each other when really one doesn't want to get married at all and the other one is looking for better prospects, then they fall in love, etc., etc. But I love the gossip piece, because really it's about society papers and sort of how the gossip mill works in that era. And that's the really, for a word nerd like me, that's the really wonderful piece. Yes, that's very good, Brooklyn. Thank you. Jane Austen.
Yeah, the creator described it as a combination of Downton Abbey and Gossip Girl, but I would also add Mean Girls and a sex ed video for 15-year-olds.
Yep, Shedriana sort of predicted where I was going with it. So if you had to take your monster and turn it into something that was from Texarkana specifically, right? So obviously her deer that looks like Freddy Krueger would work, but if you had to imagine the Texarkana monster, the easy out is the Boggy Creek monster. But what would you do?
I'd take the Ashdown paper mill and put it on legs so that I could walk around and spread its stink everywhere. That's what I would do. That's all you need. That's it. Where's it coming from now?
Texarkana is a
Smell it.
super fun site.
Right. I just, when I smell Ashdown, I think of sauerkraut, and I just want brats and sauerkraut.
I would take any motel on State Line or near it and have whatever's going on in there ramped up somehow, and so that all the inhabitants spread out through the community.
Cool. If you suddenly became a star and were compelled, no choice in this, you cannot keep your real name. You had to pick a stage name. What would it be?
I like what one of the Sonic guys once said, Dr. Fun Times. Or something, a little,
I like that.
a stage.
That's a hard one.
Well,
I don't know.
my Twitter handle is mediocrities, which I think nails it.
I like that.
I'd probably pick something ridiculous like, I don't know, like take like Duke for John Wayne as your first name, because no one calls anybody Duke anymore. Miss Nicole, I like that. That's what I could call my wife, Miss Nicole. Yeah, I don't know. Just go Duke. That's it. Just one name, like
name.
Bono, Duke.
Right.
Like the dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the one name. I like the one name.
You can always mix the names, like Tex Arcana, name it Arcana Tex.
I like that.
That's brilliant. Again, she's already thinking about where I'm going. So like if you had to all of a sudden create a character, what is the name of a character coming from Tex Arcana? I like Arcana Tex. You could still go Duke.
Well, I'm from up north, so my family name would have to be Texarkana. And I need a name that runs with that, like, like maybe a Native American name like Stormcloud.
Cracker Barrel. That would be my character. Waffle House.
See, I would go with Cricker Barrel as the long
Cracker
ago.
Barrel?
Long ago, I had a friend in college say, there are certain people. Some people say creek, some people say crick. You're either a cricker or a creaker. And so I always thought of it as Cricker Barrel. Because I'm guessing lots of the folks who eat at the Cracker Barrel would say crick as opposed to creek.
I would call the character Dallas, because then he would say, I'm Dallas from Texarkana, which is not Dallas.
Yeah.
Reminds me a lot of what's the zombie one where they're all named for their cities, the zombie movie.
Or pick a stereotypically Canadian name like Keith or Gordon, with a family name like Arrowroot.
Yeah, you could be Gordy Poutine.
Arrowroot. Oh, it's a brand name. It's a Canadian cracker.
Yeah. Arrowroot Poutine. I think that's and you could star on whatever that Bridgerton is. All right. You have to redesign the American flag. What do you put on the American flag?
Oh, it's easy. 2 more stars.
I'm dealing with a barking dog right now. What would I put on American flag? I would put a movie reel. It'd just be a movie reel.
Why a movie reel?
Stop. Why a movie reel? Because we don't value film as much as we should, Doug. It's ours. It's our art form. Gotta
You're
own it.
making a political statement.
I am.
Okay. I like it. Tyler, what's on your American flag? Beef jerky and what?
Probably a pair of socks, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe some hair or a patchy beard, something like that.
Not
have like
a Tyler flag,
badass-
American.
A badass bald eagle holding some
yeah.
money in one
Some
talon.
flame.
A mullet.
An eagle with a mullet with some.
That's right, a
flame.
badass eagle with a mullet with some money in one talon
And
something
a
else in
Budweiser in the
another.
other one.
Maybe some like some McDonald's, like a Big Mac, and the other
Oh.
one
That's good.
French fries.
A Bud Heavy, something like that.
Doug, would yours just have a chili dog on it?
There'd be
Chili
chili
dog.
dogs, there'd be cigarettes, there would be single malt scotch, all of my favorite things. I don't necessarily know that it would be American. All right. Last question, then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to talk about his research. But so now design a flag for Texarkana. What would be on the flag for Texarkana? The faces are interesting when you ask that question.
A COVID cell. Like just a green, just looks nasty.
Take the COVID cell and add pollen to it. That would be that's where I would go with it.
Yeah, just keep building onto it. Like we've got the template going. Someone just add to it.
And it's a scratch and sniff that smells like Ashdown. Dusty Walmart. And a mullet and
And it would have to be the color like where you're not really sure what color it is. Like, is that yellow or is that green or is that off? What is that color?
He's a Red River. You for sure would have that color combination. Not sure what kind of red it was.
You could base it on the electoral map and have a blue mask in the middle, surrounded by a sea of red viral particles.
that's a hefty symbol. All right, we have run into the time, and I have avoided the question ball again. So victory for me. I feel good about me. And Kevin, if you would informally tell us about what research you do, how you go about doing it, all that kind of thing, why it's your jam, what it does, how it is important, etc. However way you want to talk about it.
Well, at a place where we're essentially supposed to be full-time teachers and also part-time university professors turning out published writing and research on a regular basis, my program won't be as, the answer won't be as extensive as it would be if, I were at UT Austin or somewhere in Houston teaching 2 courses a semester. But I'm in much of what I've done is try to solve certain puzzles that come out of my teaching. And in recent years, I run into a textbook and textbook after textbook that doesn't define news in a concrete way, although journalism and entertainment can be. So I work on that and then, and try to figure out, well, how can it be defined? Or how, or I look at mass communication and say, well, mass communication and mass media aren't the same thing. So what's the real definition? And working on that got me an essay published recently in a journal literally called Journalism and Mass Communication Educator. It's pretty much on the nose if you're trying to keep your job at a place like this. So, and in other cases, I find in recent research that I've taken to a couple of national and international conferences, in many cases it grows out of my teaching, where I find that the explanations in the textbook are not that clear or conceptually sound. So I think, well, how can we put it, instead of talking about compliance gaining or influence and 64 different ways of influencing, what would it take to boil it down to 3 core concepts? Like power, influence, and authority. How can that be tied to grammatical utterances so that instead of sort of feeling your way or judging, you've got actual, you can read an email or listen to what people say and say, I understand that they're trying to influence, they're trying to persuade me by reference to their power or to influence me or just to assert their authority. And trying to make for my students working through a very complex world and reduce it to a number of core concepts that can apply across the board. So some of that is in conference papers, some of it is in papers that I'm trying to submit, but I think probably a lot of it comes from simply trying to explain concepts that have been hard to wrestle down for a couple thousand years in the history of rhetoric, speech, and persuasion. And then thinking, well, if I can make it clear for this group, maybe maybe the puzzle's solved and we can get it out there and make something of use for other people. A quick thing, the last thing that bothered me was concepts, was the idea from rhetoric and English composition of the idea of a synecdoche, which is the least known word in people will know more about metaphor or metonymy or irony. And so when I'm looking at it, I think, oh, it's obvious. That's not just part for whole. That's where you're using a part and using it as a symbol for something much greater, like the White House or the Kremlin. Then I go to the textbooks and I see confused representations or people flat out saying, it's kind of like metonymy, so we don't use the word much anymore. And then I go back to the history of it and I think, well, Quintilian discussed it. Ramus discussed it. Vico discussed it. Kenneth Burke made it central. So how could a textbook sideline it? And then I think, well, where else is it? Well, journalists use it. Every time they use the word symbolize. So that's the kind of puzzle. I think partly I solve puzzles in a lot of the critical or historical or argument-based research. And on the other side, I've contributed a bit to rhetorical criticism using the media ecology tradition as a way of assessing cultural artifacts like the interstate, doing old-fashioned speech criticism on an article by the biologist Garrett Hardin on overpopulation. And that's been reproduced in an international encyclopedia of environmental communication. And recently testing my feet in the quantitative waters, I devised a research program in grad school that I thought was pretty solid and a very nicely constructed quantitative project. And my recent colleague, Dr. Wong, thought it was well conceived too, and so I invited her in to shore up the quantitative analysis. And that went to an international paper a couple of years ago. And then she asked if she could add a couple of questions to the whole survey. And I said, well, sure. So I found the funding on campus to run the study. And then she crunched all the numbers based on her stuff, ran all the results, and got the damn thing published in an international journal of environmental communication. My name on it, but it's basically her work. But that's the bulk of it is historical or argumentation or critical based research and analysis that tries to solve real problems that students have. And but I'm certainly interested in the interested in how, if you're in the environmental field, if you can't even persuade grown men and women to put on a mask to go to Walmart, how are you going to persuade people that something they can't even see in front of them, like impending climate change, is something they could actually change their daily life about? That strikes me as an enormous puzzle in rhetoric, persuasion, mass communication, and so on. So it's those big puzzles that interest me. And somehow, thank God, I got through that entire thing without once mentioning the word semiotics.
Bravo. That brings us to our end. Thank you for following us to 11 instead of 12. Again, I'll put this on the old YouTube eventually once Tyler slings it to me and all those sort of things happen. We do this every Friday. Tell your friends it's a good time. We're always looking for more people to answer my ridiculous questions and find out about what's going on at the university. So thank you both, Kevin and Drew, especially for your time and coming on and making it work. And the rest of you, it's been a pleasure. Stay safe.
Thanks, Doug.